The moment I walked into the kitchen and saw both my wives laughing together, my heart stopped, because either of them knew the other was married to me. I froze in the doorway. My fingers clenched around the strap of my briefcase so tightly that the leather squeaked. That sound, that innocent burst of laughter echoing from the kitchen, didn't belong here. It was wrong. It was dangerous. The air smelled of cinnamon and fresh coffee, drifting down the hallway like some cruel trick of fate. My throat went dry. Emily's voice floated out first, light and easy. Emily. My sweet, trusting Emily, who believed every business trip, every late night conference call. Then I heard Sarah's lower, huskier laugh, sharp, playful, familiar in the way only a wife's laugh could be. And that's when the blood drained from my face. Both of my wives, in the same kitchen, laughing, talking. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating. Maybe exhaustion had finally pushed me over the edge. But then the scrape of a wooden spoon against the pot pulled me back into reality. Emily was cooking. Sarah was leaning against the counter, by the sound of her bracelets jingling softly when she gestured. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I could hear the rush in my ears. No. This isn't possible. I've kept them apart for years. Different towns, different routines, different stories. My body screamed at me to run. But I couldn't move. My legs were rooted to the hardwood floor, the hallway spinning as if gravity itself was pulling me toward my downfall. Emily's voice cut through the haze. This cinnamon smells exactly like what Mark used to make on Christmas mornings. Isn't that funny? Mark, my name. Hearing it spoken between them was like hearing the trigger pulled on a loaded gun. Sarah chuckled. Really? He never cooks for me. He always claims he can't stand being near the stove. My stomach twisted. Lies colliding, unraveling. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to breathe silently. The wood beneath my shoes creaked, and I froze, terrified they'd notice. My pulse was hammering so loudly I was sure it could be heard in the kitchen. Emily's laugh softened. I guess men change depending on who they're with, don't they? That wasn't just a casual remark. That was a test. Sarah's reply was quieter, almost thoughtful. Yeah, they do. Their tone shifted. Less casual. Less innocent. The laughter that once filled the air now carried an edge I couldn't ignore. My inner voice screamed, say something. Walk in. Pretend it's a coincidence. You can spin this. You've spun worse before. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not when I didn't know how much they knew. The kitchen clock ticked faintly in the silence that followed, each second stabbing into me like a needle. Emily broke it first. So, she asked, her voice syrupy sweet but tight at the edges. How long have you known Mark? My vision blurred. My throat closed. The words nearly knocked me to my knees. Emily. How long have you known Mark? Sarah. Long enough. But I want to hear what you know. Emily. Funny. I thought I knew everything about him. Turns out maybe not. Their voices overlapped with the faint hiss of the stovetop burner, the clink of a spoon, the hum of the refrigerator. Normal sounds in a house. But nothing about this moment was normal. I leaned back against the wall, my breath shallow. My shirt clung to my back, damp with sweat. The hallway suddenly felt 10 degrees hotter, though I knew the air conditioning was humming steadily. I wanted to scream, to run, to burst in with some charming lie. But my brain felt scrambled. The careful choreography I had lived by, juggling 2 lives, 2 wives, 2 families, was unraveling thread by thread in the span of minutes. How long have you known Mark? Emily had asked it like she already knew the answer. Which meant this wasn't coincidence. This wasn't chance. This was the beginning of something I couldn't control. I pressed a hand to my chest, desperate to slow my heartbeat. But then Sarah's voice shifted, soft and deliberate, almost like a knife being sharpened. Emily, I think we should compare notes. The words slashed through me. My chest tightened. For years, I'd been the puppet master, controlling the strings, spinning the lies, keeping everything compartmentalized. I thought I was untouchable. But standing there, smelling cinnamon and garlic in the same room, hearing 2 voices that should never have overlapped, I realized I was no longer the one pulling the strings. And then Emily set her spoon down, her voice calm but laced with something darker. So, how long have you known Mark? All my lies raced back at once, like knives against my throat. Sweat slid down my spine as I pressed myself deeper into the hallway's shadow, barely breathing. The smell of garlic sizzling in the pan was thick, sharp, filling the house with a warmth that should have felt comforting. But in that moment it choked me. It reminded me of every dinner, Every staged moment of domestic peace I had sold to both of them, duplicated like a performance I thought I'd perfected. Emily's laugh cut through the air again, soft but brittle this time. You know, when he's gone, I never quite know where he is. He just says consulting trip and vanishes for 3 days. No details. My heart stuttered. My cover story. My safe lie. The one that had always worked. Sarah's bracelets jingled when she crossed her arms. I could hear the faint click of glass beads against her watch. Her voice was lower, more measured. That's interesting. Because he tells me he's just across the county. Working late nights, managing contracts. Always the same line. It's boring paperwork. Honey, don't wait up. My vision swam. Emily. Consulting, huh? Sarah. Paperwork management. Night after night. Emily. That doesn't sound like the same man. Sarah. Maybe it's not. I gripped the wall, my fingers trembling. The cool paint beneath my palm felt slick with sweat. I remembered the rehearsals in the mirror, the careful tone shifts, the way I used humor to disarm their suspicions, the perfect timing of my texts. I had played the role of 2 husbands, 2 homes, 2 realities. And now, in the smell of garlic and cinnamon, I realized those realities were colliding like glass shattering. Emily's spoon clinked against the pot, steady at first, then faster. Nervous. She was masking it with casual words, but her body betrayed her. I could imagine the tightness in her shoulders, the way her lips pressed too hard into a smile. Sarah, though, had gone still. I knew her stillness. It was the silence she used when she was thinking 2 steps ahead, when she was planning her words like chess moves. Emily said softly, So, if you're with him at night, and I'm with him on weekends then… Sarah cut in, sharp. Then who the hell is he with the rest of the time? Her voice snapped like a whip. I flinched, though she wasn't speaking to me directly. My inner voice screamed, Do something. Say something. Walk in and spin it. Laugh it off. Blame coincidence. Blame Robert. Blame anyone but yourself. But my body betrayed me. My breath hitched too loud. I clamped a hand over my mouth, pressing my back into the wall. Emily lowered her voice, but I caught it. Maybe we're both fools. Maybe we've both been lied to. Sarah's bracelets rattled again as she shifted, leaning closer, her words deliberate. What if we test him tonight? Her suggestion coiled around me like a noose. Emily. Test him? How? Sarah. Simple. We stop waiting for him to explain. We set the trap. Emily. And if we're wrong? Sarah. Then he'll never know. Pause. But if we're right, Emily, then he's been lying to us both. The garlic hissed in the pan like a snake. The silence afterward felt heavier than sound, pressing into my skull. I thought of the times I'd almost been caught. Emily spotting Sarah's earring in the car, Sarah finding a receipt from a restaurant I'd only ever visited with Emily. Each time I had danced out of the fire with some excuse, some grin, some manipulation. But tonight, I could feel the flames licking closer. I wanted to burst in, to take control before they took it from me. But the truth was clear. I had already lost control. The performance was no longer mine. Emily exhaled sharply. You really think he's been playing us? Sarah's answer was quiet, steady, chilling. I don't think. I know. The words hit me harder than a punch. My head spun, sweat dripping into my eyes, stinging. I blinked hard, my breath ragged. Every carefully stacked lie was toppling in my mind like dominoes, each one crashing louder than the last. I thought of my daughters. What if this spilled to them? What if the perfect father image I'd maintained cracked too? The kitchen seemed brighter suddenly, almost blinding, though I hadn't moved. The smell of garlic, cinnamon, the faint coffee, it all felt poisonous now. Every normal detail of the room had turned into a weapon, and I realized something that chilled me more than anything. They weren't just suspicious. They weren't just asking questions. They were working together. And then Sarah whispered, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. You know, I think he's been lying to us both. I thought I was the hunter, but in that moment, I felt like prey. The silence was unbearable. Every tick of the kitchen clock behind me thudded like a hammer against my ribs. The smell of garlic, once intoxicating, had soured, too sharp, too bitter, clinging to my throat as if mocking me. Sarah's voice finally cut through the air, low and deliberate, each word carrying the weight of something long buried. You know, Emily, this isn't the first time I've had doubts. Doubts. My stomach twisted. Emily's chuckle, light at first, faltered into something brittle. Doubts? About what? Sarah shifted, and though I couldn't see her from the hallway, I could hear it, the faint scrape of her chair legs against tile, the subtle exhale she always released before launching into something dangerous. "About him," she said flatly. The words dropped like lead into the room. I froze. The breath I was holding burned in my chest. My mind clawed back through every close call. Sarah holding up that silver bracelet with narrowed eyes, asking, "Who does this belong to?" The bracelet Emily had left in my car. The way I'd smirked, improvising some story about a colleague's birthday gift, and Sarah had smiled, but her fingers had tapped against the table, restless, unconvinced. And Emily, sweet, trusting Emily, she had nearly exposed me herself when she almost dialed my number one night while I was sitting across from Sarah. I remembered the vibration in my pocket, the way Sarah's eyes flicked to me, sharp, suspicious, while I muttered some excuse about a client. I thought I'd outmaneuvered them both. But now, listening from the shadows, I realized those suspicions hadn't died. They had been festering, quietly, methodically, until tonight. Sarah. He always has an excuse. Always. The late meetings, the trips, the receipts that don't add up. Emily. Receipts? Sarah. Yeah. 2 dinners at that Italian place. But he swore he ate alone. Who spends $80 on a solo meal? Emily gave a short laugh, but it was hollow, cracking in the middle. That's funny. He told me he hated that place. I clenched my jaw so hard it ached. One slip, one careless night of ordering the same wine twice, and suddenly the whole facade unraveled. The air thickened. Even from the hallway, I could feel it pressing down on me, heavy and suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Emily's spoon tapped against her glass, rapid, nervous. I just thought, maybe I was overthinking. Maybe he really was working. Sarah's voice sharpened, cutting through her hesitation. No. Don't you see? He's been playing us, both of us, for who knows how long. I gripped the molding of the doorway so hard my knuckles burned. I wanted to storm in, to shatter the fragile alliance forming between them before it solidified into something I couldn't undo. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because Sarah wasn't guessing. She was certain. And Emily was starting to believe her. Emily. But why? Why would he go through all that trouble? Sarah. Because men like him always think they're smarter than us. Always think they can juggle lies without dropping one. Emily. So what do we do? My heart pounded so violently I thought they'd hear it. I was supposed to be the one weaving the net, controlling the narrative, keeping each life neatly separate. Now here I was, cornered in my own house, listening to them compare notes like detectives piecing together a crime scene. The clink of dishes echoed, sharp and violent, as Sarah gathered plates from the counter. Each sound stabbed through the silence like a gunshot. I flinched. My own home had turned hostile, every sound a weapon, every word a threat. I realized then that they weren't just strangers who had stumbled across each other by accident. They had talked before, compared details, maybe even planned this dinner long before I arrived. The idea chilled me to the bone. Sarah had been setting this trap for weeks. Emily's voice trembled now. But if you're right, then everything I thought was real. Sarah's reply was calm, almost soothing. Then we stopped being victims. We stopped letting him pull the strings. That was the moment my heart sank deepest. Because Sarah wasn't just suspicious. She was ready for war. The scrape of her chair echoed again as she leaned closer. I could picture it vividly. Her eyes locked on Emily's, her hand probably resting on the table, steady and commanding, her smile thin but dangerous. Her words came out like a blade sliding from its sheath. Emily leaned closer to Sarah, her voice barely above a whisper, trembling with both fear and resolve. What if we test him tonight? I should have silenced Robert when I had the chance. The name hit me like a brick. Even before Emily said it, I felt him there, Robert. My late wife's brother. His presence always lingered like a stale odor of tobacco and motor oil, sticking to my memories, to my skin. In the kitchen, Sarah's voice was steady, casual even, but there was venom beneath. You know who I ran into a few weeks back? Robert. Emily's spoon froze mid-stir. I could hear the metal scrape softly against the side of the pot before she let it drop. Robert? Her tone wasn't surprise, it was interest. My stomach iced over. Robert had never liked me. From the beginning, his eyes narrowed every time I spoke, as if he could taste the lies before they even left my mouth. He had a way of leaning in close when he talked, his breath sour with tobacco, his teeth stained like old parchment. He once muttered to me at my wife's funeral, voice low, gravelly. No man can serve two masters without choking. I'd laughed it off, called him bitter, paranoid. But now I could hear his words echoing through Sarah's mouth like a ghost pulling strings from the grave. Sarah. Yeah, Robert. He was by the grocery store parking lot, just standing there like he'd been waiting for me. Emily. That sounds like him. Creepy. Sarah. He didn't mince words. He asked if I knew about the other family. Emily. Other family? Her voice cracked at the edges. She tried to laugh, but it came out short, sharp. I knew that sound. Emily's nervous tick. Sarah didn't let her recover. She pressed harder. Sarah. He told me to watch your back. Said a man who disappears at odd hours isn't working late. He's building castles somewhere else. Emily. And you believed him? Sarah. At first, no. But then I started watching. Really watching. I gripped the hallway wall, fingernails digging into the plaster. Robert. That meddling bastard hadn't just zoned out. He'd watered it, tended it, and now it was blooming in full view of the two women I thought I controlled. I could see Robert's smirk in my mind, the way he used to lean against his rusted truck, spitting brown phlegm onto the pavement between sentences, always so sure he had me figured out. And worse, he'd known just how to play them. The kitchen was alive with small sounds that suddenly felt amplified, the soft bubble of sauce on the stove, the rhythmic tick of the clock, the faint hum of the refrigerator. But layered under it all was the sharp clink of Sarah's fingernails tapping against her wine glass, a steady, controlled rhythm. She was in command. Emily. But Robert's always hated him. He probably just wants to poison us against him. Sarah. Maybe. But why would he mention your bracelet before I even brought it up? Emily's breath caught. I heard it. A soft, audible hitch. Emily. He mentioned the bracelet? Sarah. Said he'd seen one like it before. That it didn't belong to me. My blood ran cold. Robert had seen it. He'd remembered the bracelet Emily left in my car. He had taken that fragment and turned it into a blade. I wanted to scream, to burst in and shout them both down. To tell them Robert was a bitter drunk, a failure living off the fumes of other people's grief. But if I spoke too soon, I'd prove him right. So I stayed in the shadows, every second dragging me closer to exposure. Emily. He told you that? Sarah. He told me a lot. Enough that I started keeping track. Your late nights. Your sudden trips. The lies don't even match half the time. Emily. Don't say lies, Sarah. Call it what you want. Robert planted the seed. But you know what? He was right. We've both been living in his shadow, waiting for the day the truth spills out. Emily. I don't want to believe it. Sarah. You don't have to. But tell me this. Why do we both have the same stories that don't add up? Why do we both feel the same pit in our stomachs when he walks out that door? Their voices twisted around me, pulling me tighter in the noose Robert had tied months ago. He wasn't even in the room, but his presence was louder than the clock, heavier than the air. Robert had always wanted revenge. Maybe for his sister. Maybe just for the fun of watching me squirm. And damn it, he was winning, even from the grave of our silence. Emily's spoon clattered against the counter. A sound too sharp, too final. She exhaled shakily, and then her voice came, soft, almost broken. Robert gave me something. Sarah leaned closer, her voice low, deliberate. What? Emily paused. I could hear the smile in Sarah's silence, the anticipation in the room, the trap tightening like a snare around my neck. Emily's words cut through the air, slow and measured. Robert gave me something. Maybe we should show it to him tonight. The sound of my own voice was the knife cutting my throat. The roasted chicken sat in the center of the table, steam curling upward like mocking fingers. The golden skin crackled when Sarah carved it, but the smell of rosemary and garlic turned sour in my mouth. Every bite felt like ash scraping my tongue. I forced myself to chew slowly, swallowing down the dread rising in my throat. My hands stayed flat against the wood of the table, steady. At least, that's what I wanted them to look like. Inside, my pulse hammered so hard I thought the whole damn room could hear it. Eat, Emily said softly, almost sweetly. Her fork clinked against her plate as she cut a piece of chicken. But her eyes didn't match the tone. They were sharp, testing. I nodded, pretending calm. It's good. Sarah's smile twitched. Too tight. Robert always said you had a gift for lying through your teeth. She said it like a joke, but the air went still. My stomach clenched. Robert again. His shadow everywhere. Then Emily slid her phone across the table. The pink case scraped against the wood. It stopped right in front of me. I stared at it, my reflection warped in the black glass. My hands itched to push it away. "Play it," Emily whispered. My thumb hesitated, then tapped the screen. And there it was, my voice, low, slurred with drink, but unmistakably mine. "I'll never love anyone the way I love you, Sarah. You're it for me. Always." I froze. The air in the room thickened. The words poured out of the speaker, filling the silence like poison. Then click, another file. "I don't care about anyone else, Emily. You're my forever. You're the only one who makes me feel alive." The same cadence, the same drunken sincerity, only the name had changed. My chest hollowed out, my mouth dried. The knife of recognition cut deeper with every syllable. I tried to steady my breathing, but my throat betrayed me with a faint, audible swallow. Emily leaned back, crossing her arms. "Funny how the promises line up, almost word for word." Sarah's laugh was humorless, almost like a script. I scrambled. It's not what it sounds like." "Really?" Sarah arched a brow. "Because it sounds like you rehearsed the same lines, just switched out the name." Emily's fingers drummed the table, each tap sharp, deliberate. "How many recordings do you think Robert had, Mark?" "Robert." My skin crawled at the thought of him grinning, recording me while I stumbled through late-night confessions at his kitchen table. "That son of a—" I stopped myself, jaw tightening. They wanted me angry, wanted me to slip. "Go on," Emily pushed. "Say what you were about to say." I forced a breath through my nose, steadied my voice. "He twisted everything. He was bitter. He hated me from the start." Sarah's fork paused halfway to her mouth. She set it down carefully, the clink louder than it should have been. "And yet he didn't need to twist your words. They twisted themselves." I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "You really think Robert cared about protecting either of you? He wanted revenge. He wanted me destroyed. He knew exactly how to plant seeds in your heads." Emily smirked, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Seeds don't grow without water, Mark. We watered them with your own voice." The room seemed to tilt. My body burned hot, but my hands felt cold against the table. "Say something real," Sarah said, almost pleading, though her jaw was rigid. "For once in your life, tell the truth." I wanted to. God, I wanted to spin it, to claw my way back into their trust, but my mouth stayed shut. Every lie I considered sounded hollow before I even spoke it. Emily tilted her head, studying me. "See that?" she said to Sarah. The silence. "That's the truth." My chest constricted. I gripped the edge of the table until my knuckles whitened. "You think you know everything? You don't. You're playing with fire, letting Robert get between us." Sarah's eyes hardened. "Robert may be gone, but he's still speaking through you. Every word you said is his victory." I felt the walls closing in. The chicken scent, once rich, now smelled rancid, oily, suffocating. My stomach churned so hard I thought I'd be sick. Emily leaned across the table. Her breath was warm, but her words cut colder than steel. "So," she whispered, her lips curling into a smile that wasn't a smile. "Who's the real wife, Mark?" Sarah leaned in and whispered. "So, who's the real wife, Mark?" Every excuse I spoke only tightened the rope around my neck. The faint tick of the wall clock seemed louder than my own heartbeat. Each second stabbed at the silence, drilling deeper into the space where my words kept failing. The chicken sat untouched now, skin cooling and glossy under the dim kitchen light. I pressed my palms flat on my thighs, slick with sweat, trying to ground myself. But the walls, God, the walls, they felt closer than they had minutes ago. Emily's eyes cut into me, dark, unblinking, like she could see every lie I'd rehearsed and every one I hadn't yet spoken. Sarah's hands trembled against her wine glass, but her jaw was tight, the fury bubbling beneath her skin. I cleared my throat. "You're twisting things. Robert, he wanted this. He hated me. Emily snapped. "Stop using Robert as your scapegoat." Her voice cracked like a whip across the table. My chest tightened. I tried to steady myself, soften my tone. "Emily, you know me. You know who I am with you. Don't let anyone rewrite what we have." Her lips twitched, like she almost smiled, but the smile never came. Instead, she leaned forward, voice lower, sharper. "What we had, Mark. Past tense." Sarah slammed her glass down, red wine sloshing against the rim. Her hand shook so violently a droplet hit the white tablecloth, blooming into a dark stain. She didn't notice, or she didn't care. "All those nights," Sarah spat. All those times you looked me in the eye and swore it was only me. You knew exactly what you were doing. I spread my hands. Open. Harmless. Begging. No, Sarah, I. Don't. Her voice broke. She covered her mouth with her shaking hand for a moment, then dropped it. Her face flushed crimson. Don't you dare insult me with another lie. The tick of the clock drilled deeper. I swallowed, throat dry, mind racing. I needed to control the pace, to turn the tide. You have to understand, I said, forcing steadiness into my voice. Feelings change. Life, it doesn't stay simple. I made mistakes, yes. But my heart. Emily cut me off with a bitter laugh. Your heart? You mean the one you sold twice over? Her fork clinked against her plate, sharp, deliberate. She hadn't eaten a bite. Either of them had. You want proof? Sarah leaned forward now, mirroring Emily. Then explain the recordings. Explain why Robert had the same words said to both of us. Explain why you never once told us about each other. I shifted in my chair, the wood suddenly harder, sharper against my back. I didn't tell you because I was trying to protect you. Emily scoffed. Protect us? From what? From the truth? The silence that followed was worse than their voices. It pressed down, heavy, suffocating. I thought of my daughters, both of them. Their laughter, their tiny hands clinging to mine. Innocent, unaware of the war I'd brought into this house. A cold dread slithered into my stomach. If this blew open, if the kids knew. Look at you, Sarah whispered, her voice trembling with rage. You're sweating like a criminal under interrogation. That's all you are. A coward who got caught. I wanted to slam my fist against the table, to reclaim some control, but I couldn't. One wrong move, and everything snapped. Instead, I forced my voice softer. Sarah, please, for the girls, for all of them. Don't drag them into this. They don't need to know. Emily's eyes narrowed, catching it. All of them? She repeated. My blood froze. The slip had escaped my lips before I could bite it back. Her chair scraped against the floor as she stood, slow and deliberate. She loomed over me, phone in her hand now, the glow of the screen lighting her face in a cold, bluish cast. You're right, Emily said, her voice calm but sharp as glass. The kids don't need to know. But maybe they deserve to. Sarah looked at her, confusion flickering in her face before dawning horror set in. Emily. Emily's thumb hovered over the screen. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't angry anymore. That scared me more than her fury had. You want to talk about protection, Mark? She asked, tilting her head. Maybe the only way to protect them is to let them hear the truth from your own mouth. The air in the room stopped moving. My chest constricted, every muscle rigid. I could hear nothing but the clock tick. Then Emily lifted her phone to her lips and said, almost casually, maybe the kids deserve to hear the truth. Then Emily picked up her phone and said, maybe the kids deserve to hear the truth. When my daughters looked at me, I saw nothing but betrayal reflected back. The creak of the staircase hit me like a gunshot. Soft, hesitant footsteps, my daughters. I froze, every muscle in my body locking as the air in the dining room thickened. My mind screamed at Emily to put the phone down, to stall, to keep them away. But she didn't. She just tightened her grip on the glowing rectangle, her knuckles pale, her lips pressed together in a trembling line. The smell of burnt garlic from the oven clung to the air, sharp and acrid, as the sound of their voices carried down the hall. Mom? What's going on? I turned in my chair, my throat tightening as the girls stepped into the room, my oldest first, her hair a tangled halo from bed, followed by my youngest clutching a stuffed rabbit by the ear. Innocence. Pure, fragile innocence. Sweethearts, I started, my voice cracking. It's late. You should be upstairs. But Emily's hand rose, palm out, stopping me like a cop at a barricade. No, Mark, she said. Her voice shook, but her eyes burned with cold fire. They deserve to hear it. My heart slammed against my ribs. Emily, please. Not like this. Sarah's chair scraped sharply as she turned toward the girls, her face tight with fury but softened at the edges when she looked at them. Come here, girls. Sit down. My oldest frowned. Why? What's wrong? The youngest clambered into the nearest chair, rabbit still clutched. She looked at me with sleepy confusion, and that gaze nearly broke me in half. Emily slid the phone across the table toward them. Her hand shook, but her voice was steady when she said, Listen. I lunged slightly, palm flat on the table. No. But she had already pressed play. My voice filled the room. I promise you, Sarah. You're the only one. The love of my life, forever. I could never lie to you. The words echoed like a curse. Then, another recording. Emily, no one compares to you. You're everything I ever wanted. I'll never hurt you, never betray you. My oldest eyes widened, darting between me and the phone. My youngest frowned, lips trembling. Daddy. Her voice cracked, small and broken. Why do you sound like that twice? Tears welled hot in my eyes. It's not what you think. I can explain. My oldest face hardened, too wise for her years. You lied. The word landed like a blade. I didn't mean to. My chest heaved. I love you. Both of you. Everything I've done, every mistake. Sarah's laugh cut through my pleading, sharp and bitter. Mistake? Years of lies, Mark? That's not a mistake. That's who you are. My daughters flinched at her tone. My youngest hugged her rabbit tighter, eyes brimming. Emily leaned closer to them, voice gentle now, deliberately contrasting mine. Your father, he had 2 families. He told the same promises to me and to Sarah. Do you understand? No. My oldest whispered, tears streaking down her cheeks. No, he wouldn't. She looked at me, desperate for me to contradict it. And I had nothing. Every word stuck in my throat like shards of glass. I wanted to grab her, hold her, swear it wasn't true, but the recordings already condemned me. My own voice was the executioner. Their cries tore through me. My youngest whimpered into her rabbit's fur. My oldest shook her head, muttering, You lied, you lied. I reached out across the table, palm trembling. Please listen to me. I'm still your dad. I love you more than anything. That hasn't changed. But when their eyes met mine, I didn't see love. I saw betrayal. Pure, unfiltered betrayal. Emily pressed the knife in deeper with a whisper, just loud enough for the girls to hear. This is who he really is. Sarah's fingers tapped against her wine glass, a nervous tick betraying her fury. She leaned in, eyes narrowing at me. Tell them the truth, Mark. Tell them how many promises you broke. Tell them how many nights you slipped away. I shook my head, desperate. Don't do this in front of them. They're just kids. Exactly. Emily snapped. Kids who deserve honesty. Something you never gave them. The weight of it crushed me. All my careful lies, all my balancing acts. It wasn't just wives I'd betrayed. It was bedtimes, birthdays, bedtime stories whispered with half a heart because the other half belonged somewhere else. I wanted to scream, to tear at my skin, to take it all back. But it was too late. The clock ticked. My daughters sobbed. The world shrank to that table. And then Sarah's voice cut through, low and sharp, the question I had no answer for. How many other families are out there, Mark? And then Sarah asked the one question I had no answer for. How many other families are out there, Mark? For the first time, I realized they weren't just angry, they were united. The silence after Sarah's question lingered like smoke. My daughter's eyes burned into me, raw and wet, while Emily and Sarah exchanged a glance so sharp it cut me deeper than their words. It wasn't random anymore, not just chaos. There was something deliberate in their stillness, a current between them I hadn't seen before. I tried to steady my breathing, force calm back into my voice. My pulse hammered in my ears, drowning out the ticking clock. You're misunderstanding, I said, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow even to me. Those recordings, twisted, taken out of context. You know how family gatherings get. I'd had too much to drink, words slurred, memories blurred. Sarah tilted her head slowly, her lips curving in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Is that what this is, Mark? Slurred words? Emily's jaw flexed silent, her fingers drumming against the phone screen like a ticking bomb. My daughters sat frozen, one clutching her rabbit, the other with her arms crossed tight over her chest. I'm telling you the truth, I pressed, leaning forward, hands spread as if I could build a bridge with my palms. You mean everything to me, all of you. I made mistakes, yes, but I never stopped loving. Love? Emily's voice cracked like a whip. You don't even know what that word means. The heat in her tone forced me back. My throat went dry. Sarah, meanwhile, didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She leaned back, swirling the wine in her glass, watching the red liquid coil against the glass like blood. Funny thing about lies, Mark. They start to sound like love until someone puts the pieces together. The air in the room thinned. My daughters sniffled softly, their betrayal simmering in silence. I needed to pivot, needed to defuse this before the ground shifted further beneath me. Please, please, you're twisting this into something it's not. My voice dropped, trembling. I can't lose my family. I'll do anything, therapy, Counseling, whatever it takes. But Emily's eyes flickered toward Sarah. Just for a second. A glance. Agreement. Strategy. My stomach dropped. They weren't just confronting me, they were aligning. Later that night, the house had settled into its brittle quiet, the kind where every creak sounded like a threat. I sat in the dark at the edge of the bed, palms pressed to my eyes, trying to stop the spiral. My thoughts circled like vultures. If I could just talk to them separately, if I could just explain, I could salvage something. But then I heard it. Sarah's voice, muffled but sharp, cutting through the floorboards. I moved quietly down the hall, careful not to let the wood groan under my weight. Her door was ajar, just a sliver. Enough. Her voice carried in fragments. Yes, tomorrow, no, we have enough. The recordings are clear. He can't argue them. A pause. The scrape of a chair. Meeting 10 a.m. I'll bring the files. You bring the lawyer. My chest tightened. My lungs refused to pull in air. Lawyer. Evidence. Meeting. I felt like I was drowning while standing still. I pressed against the wall, ears straining, the cool plaster grounding me as Sarah's voice continued. No, the girls know enough. Emily showed them tonight. Yes, they cried, of course. But it had to be done. I wanted to burst in, to shout, to stop it. But my legs locked. Fear rooted me in place. Then Emily's voice joined hers, soft but lethal. Tomorrow, we end this. The call clicked shut. And in the silence that followed, the house itself seemed to shift. The air turned colder. The shadows grew longer. Even the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen sounded like a warning. I realized then that my lies weren't strings I was pulling anymore. They were the cage I was trapped in. And my wives, once rivals, were now the predators circling inside with me. The rest of the night was a blur of pacing, whispers through the vents, and the muffled sounds of drawers opening and closing. I caught fragments, papers sliding into folders, hushed arguments, the faint click of Emily's nails against her phone screen. When I finally crawled back into bed, I lay rigid, eyes pinned to the ceiling. Every shadow looked like a noose, every whisper of whine through the window like the opening of a cell door. I thought of my daughters' faces, tear-streaked, empty of trust. Their silence had cut deeper than Sarah's barbs or Emily's fury. Tomorrow. They said tomorrow? And I knew, whatever trap they were building, I was already inside it. Emily ended the call with a chilling line. Tomorrow, we end this. Robert didn't come to destroy me alone. He came to watch me burn. The next morning felt wrong before I even opened my eyes. The house smelled of stale coffee and something heavier, the stench of betrayal that clung to the air like smoke after a fire. Every creak of the stairs above me sounded rehearsed, deliberate, as though Emily and Sarah were moving in time with a plan I wasn't part of. I tried to convince myself I could still turn it around. If I just spoke to them calmly, if I explained. But deep down I knew I wasn't in control anymore. The knock came at 9:03 a.m. precise, measured. I froze in the kitchen, mug half raised to my lips. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Emily and Sarah moved before I could. Emily's shoulders squared, her face calm, almost smug. Sarah adjusted the sleeve of her sweater, her fingers twitching with nervous energy, but her eyes stayed fixed on the door like a soldier awaiting orders. When the door opened, my stomach lurched. Robert. He looked older than the last time I'd seen him, lines deeper around his mouth, hair thinner, but his eyes? Those hadn't aged a day. They still had the same cold sharpness, the same unwavering hatred I'd seen at my first wife's funeral. And he was smiling. Morning, Robert said, voice smooth, casual, like he was greeting old friends. He held a leather folder under one arm, thick, bulging, ominous. Emily stepped aside to let him in without hesitation. Sarah followed, lips pressed into a thin line. Robert, I croaked, setting my mug down too hard on the counter. Coffee sloshed over the rim. What the hell are you doing here? Me? His eyebrows arched in mock surprise as he strolled inside, as comfortable in my house as if he owned it. Just paying a visit. Though, if we're honest, Mark, you knew this was coming. I forced a laugh, though my throat was dry. This isn't your business. Robert's eyes glittered. My late sister would disagree. The words punched the air from my lungs. Emily and Sarah glanced at each other. Confirmation, alignment, unity. They weren't just letting him in. They had invited him. My hands clenched. You poisoned them. You've been whispering lies about me for years. Lies? Robert chuckled, shaking his head. He tapped the folder. If you're so sure, you won't mind us reviewing a little documentation. Emily gestured toward the dining table, her voice deceptively calm. Let's sit. It wasn't a suggestion. We gathered around the table like some grotesque parody of a family dinner. The smell of stale coffee mingled with the faint tang of garlic still clinging from last night's meal. My daughter's drawings hung crooked on the fridge behind Robert's shoulder, innocent colors mocking the darkness tightening around me. Robert placed the folder on the table and slid into a chair opposite me. He opened it slowly, deliberately, like a priest revealing scripture. Before we begin, he said, eyes never leaving mine, I want you to know something. This isn't just justice for Emily or Sarah. This isn't just about the children. This is for Anna, my first wife, his sister. Her name landed like a stone in my chest. You don't get to. Quiet. Robert cut me off, his voice suddenly sharp, commanding. His hand twitched as if resisting the urge to slam the folder shut again. You had your chance to talk. Now you'll listen. Emily leaned forward, her elbow on the table, chin resting on her palm. A small smirk tugged at her lips. Sarah, though, couldn't keep still. Her leg bounced beneath the table, fingers tapping against her thigh. But both of them kept their eyes locked on me, united, unwavering. Robert pulled out the first sheet. A photograph. Me, smiling with Sarah at a Christmas party, while Emily was still pregnant. Coincidence? Robert's tone was mocking. Next, a printed email. My words, undeniable, black and white. Don't tell Emily I'm here tonight. Sarah inhaled sharply, as if reliving the sting of it. Emily's smile widened, cruel satisfaction flashing across her face. Robert laid out more, receipts, letters, photographs of me at hotels, timestamps aligned with Emily's pregnancies, Sarah's anniversaries. Each page was a blade. Each word stripped another layer of defense. You see, Robert said softly, almost tenderly, you were never as clever as you thought. Every slip, every mistake, you left crumbs. All I had to do was collect them. My throat burned. This is twisted. You manipulated them. Emily snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. No, Mark, you manipulated us. Robert just opened our eyes. Sarah's hands shook now, but her voice didn't falter. You broke all of us. He's just holding up the mirror. I looked around that table. The man who hated me, the wives who once loved me, the evidence spread out like a crime scene, and I realized something chilling. They weren't just confronting me anymore. They were putting me on trial. And Robert was both prosecutor and executioner. Robert flipped to the final page, tapped it with a deliberate finger, and smiled. Shall we begin? When Robert opened that folder, my world ended page by page. The house didn't feel like my house anymore. By mid-afternoon, voices swelled through the walls, neighbors, old friends, family members who hadn't stepped foot here in years. Laughter at first, cautious greetings, the clinking of cups. But beneath it was something darker, a current humming low and electric, like the air before a storm. The living room reeked of aftershave, perfume, and coffee that had sat too long on the burner. The curtains were drawn wide, letting harsh daylight pour in, bleaching the room until every crack and flaw in the paint seemed exposed. And I stood in the middle of it all, trapped. Robert orchestrated the seating like a conductor arranging his orchestra. Emily and Sarah flanked him at the center, each with their own stack of papers. My children sat on the couch, stiff, uncertain, eyes darting to me, then away, as though looking at me too long might burn them. Neighbors filled the chairs against the walls. Even the Johnsons, who lived 3 houses down and barely waved at me most mornings, had shown up. Robert tapped the folder on his lap, smiling with that maddening calm. Shall we begin? The murmurs died instantly. I swallowed, the taste of metal thick on my tongue. He started small, an old receipt from a hotel 2 towns over. He passed it around like evidence in a courtroom. Each hand that touched it lingered too long, as if absorbing the shame from the paper. Coincidence, perhaps, Robert said, tone smooth as oil. His lips curled in something close to kindness, but his eyes stayed hard. But let's not stop there. He revealed an email, my words, undeniable. Gasps rippled through the room. That's not... I tried, but Emily cut me off with a sharp laugh. Not what? Not your words? We've all seen your inbox, Mark. The neighbors turned, eyes narrowing. Some shook their heads slowly. Others whispered behind palms, voices sharp with disgust. I wanted to scream, to tear the papers apart, but my feet stayed rooted, heavy, as though chained to the carpet. Robert leaned back, his voice measured, each syllable deliberate. It's one thing to betray a wife, But to pit them against each other? To lie to your children, your friends, your community? He shook his head with mock sadness. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern. Emily stepped in, her smile thin and poisonous. Do you remember Valentine's Day, Mark? When you told me you had to work late? A murmur rose. She held up a photo. Me. With Sarah. Same night. Gasps. Whispers turned to low growls. My children's faces crumpled. My son's eyes wide and wet. My daughter covering her mouth as though she might vomit. Dad? She whispered. My chest tightened. It wasn't. It's not what it looks like. Robert's laugh cut me off, sharp and triumphant. It never is until it is. The weight of their eyes crushed me. Every glance was a stone added to my shoulders, dragging me lower. The room felt smaller, hotter, air thinning with judgment. Sarah stood now, her hands trembling, but her voice steady. Do you know what it feels like living like that? Thinking you're chosen, special, only to find out you're a placeholder? That every kiss, every promise, was recycled? Her eyes bored into me, glistening with rage and tears. You made me a ghost in my own home. The neighbors gasped again. Someone muttered, Monster. I turned to Emily, desperate. You knew me, you loved me. Loved? She spat, her mouth twisting. Past tense. Robert clapped his hands once, soft, controlled, silencing the room again. His composure was unnerving. No raised voice. No shouting. Just calm venom. What we're witnessing here isn't just infidelity. It's deception of the highest order. A man building two lives, letting them rot from the inside out. He let the silence hang, savoring it. Then, like a butcher delivering the final cut, he added, And it's time everyone saw the rot for what it is. The papers spread across the coffee table like a crime scene. Receipts, emails, photographs. Each page was another nail hammered into my coffin. My own children flinched when I moved, as though I might lash out. I didn't. My voice cracked. It wasn't like this. You don't understand. But my words drowned under their murmurs. The Johnsons whispered furiously to each other. Old friends I'd once trusted avoided my gaze. Even my own brother-in-law sat in the corner, jaw clenched, refusing to meet my eyes. It wasn't just exposure. It was execution. Slow, public, deliberate. Then Emily stood, holding something behind her back. Her movements were controlled, but I saw the tension in her jaw, the slight tremor in her wrist. She wasn't calm. She was feeding off the performance, the audience, the power of finally turning the tables. Before we end, she said, voice clear, cutting through the murmurs, there's one more thing. Robert's eyes gleamed. He already knew. Sarah looked away, as if she couldn't watch what came next. Emily laid the object on the table with theatrical care. A single folded letter, creased, edges browned with age. My blood went cold. I had burned it. I knew I had burned it. And yet, here it was. The room leaned forward in unison, as though gravity had shifted. My children's faces were pale, waiting. Robert's smirk deepened. Emily's fingers brushed the page, savoring the moment. This, she said softly, almost tenderly, is the piece he prayed no one would ever see. She unfolded the letter with deliberate slowness, her eyes never leaving mine, and whispered, Funny thing, Mark, fire doesn't always erase the truth. I tried to fight back, but every move I made only buried me deeper. The letter shook in Emily's hand as she read it aloud. Her voice was calm, but the tremor beneath each word was louder than any scream. Mark, she said, eyes flicking up to meet mine, you didn't just betray us. You built a second family. A woman in Ohio. And a daughter. 6 years old. Gasps tore through the room like shrapnel. I couldn't breathe. The carpet tilted beneath my feet. I lunged forward, snatching at the paper, but Sarah blocked me with a sudden, vicious shove. Don't you dare touch it. Her face was pale, lips pressed into a trembling line, but her eyes burned with fury I hadn't seen before. I burned that letter, I croaked. My own words betrayed me. I hadn't meant to admit it, but the truth slipped out raw, jagged. Robert chuckled low, leaning back in his chair like a king watching his executioner swing the axe. Oh, he admits it now. Isn't that something? The whispers exploded again. Neighbors leaning in, eyes wide, hands covering mouths. My children clung to each other, my son's face red and blotchy, my daughter whispering, Another, he has another. I slammed my fist on the coffee table, the sound cracking through the air. Stop it! You don't understand. That was years ago. It meant nothing. The words sounded weak, hollow even to my ears. Emily's laugh was sharp, brittle. Nothing? She's a child, Mark. A child you abandoned. I felt my throat close. Rage boiled up, desperate to find release. I was trying to protect you. Protect us? Sarah cut me off, her voice rising. From what? From the truth? The living room smelled of sweat now, sharp and sour under the heavy perfume. My shirt clung to my back. Every time I moved, eyes followed me like chains dragging me down. You think screaming will save you? Robert's voice sliced through, steady, mocking. His fingers tapped idly on the folder, as if this were all routine. All it does is prove how small you've become. I'm not small, I hissed, pointing a shaking finger at him. You think you've won something here? You've twisted them, manipulated my family against me. He tilted his head, feigning sympathy. I didn't twist anything, Mark. I just let your truth breathe. My fists clenched. I wanted to tear that smug smile off his face, but every time I opened my mouth, another voice rose against me. Do you know how humiliating this is? Emily spat. All those nights I defended you, telling people they were wrong. That my husband wasn't a liar. That he wasn't like that. Sarah's tears spilled, but her voice stayed strong. I thought I was your wife, not your game piece. My children sat frozen. My son finally looked at me, voice cracking. Dad, is it true? Do I have a sister? The question pierced deeper than anything Robert could have said. My legs almost buckled. It's not, it's complicated. Robert laughed again, louder this time, filling the room. Complicated. That's a good word for it. Not betrayal. Not cowardice. Just complicated. I tried to fight back with volume. With rage. My voice thundered. Enough! I made mistakes, yes, but I am still your father, your husband. You don't throw away a man for one. Emily's voice cracked like a whip. One? She stepped closer, eyes blazing, her hand trembling as she pointed at the pile of evidence on the table. This isn't one, Mark. This is a lifetime of lies. Sarah joined her, her body trembling but her words sharp. You built us up just to watch us crumble. And now you want pity? I opened my mouth, but nothing came. The walls pressed in, the air too thick to breathe. Robert leaned forward now, elbows on his knees, his grin wolfish. This is the end of your little empire, Mark. The empire of lies, collapsing right where you built it. I staggered back, knocking into a chair. Murmurs rose again, angry, disgusted. Someone muttered, pathetic. I shouted back at them, wild. You don't know me. You don't know what I've done for this family. But the room no longer belonged to me. My children avoided my eyes. Emily and Sarah stood tall, united, their hands shaking but their resolve unshaken. And Robert watched me with the satisfaction of a predator that had already swallowed its prey. The house smelled of hatred now. Thick, suffocating. Not the warmth of dinners and laughter. Just betrayal burning in the air. I won't let you do this, I growled, fists shaking. Robert slid the folder shut with deliberate care. Then, with the ease of a man who had prepared this moment for years, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a plain envelope. The room hushed. Even Emily and Sarah froze, watching him. He set the envelope on the table and pushed it toward me with 2 fingers. This, he said softly, savoring the words, is from her. The envelope sat between us like a loaded gun, and for the first time that night, I felt true fear. Her voice reached me from the grave, sharper than any knife. My fingers trembled as I held the envelope. It wasn't Robert's neat scrawl, nor the cold official print of a lawyer's notice. No, this was her handwriting. Curved, deliberate, unmistakably hers. My late wife's hand. The room closed in around me. The ticking of the grandfather clock behind the sofa stretched into a hammer against my skull. Everyone watched. My wives, my children, Robert, all standing like jurors waiting for the condemned man to read his sentence. I wanted to throw the letter in the fire. Pretend I'd never seen it. But my hand betrayed me. My nail ripped under the seal, and the paper groaned as I unfolded it. And then, her words. Mark, if you are reading this, then Robert has done what I asked of him. That means you didn't change. You didn't stop. You didn't come clean. You went on lying. My throat closed. I swallowed hard, but the words wouldn't stay buried. My children clung to one another tighter. She knew, I whispered. My voice cracked like dry wood snapping. Read it, Robert said, his voice smooth, commanding. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, lips curled in that damn smirk. Let them hear every word. I don't have to. I started, but Emily's sharp voice cut me off. You do. Her jaw was tight, fists white-knuckled at her sides. For once in your life, don't hide. I pressed my fingers to the page, leaving sweat stains. I couldn't look at them, not when their eyes burned holes through me. You thought you were clever. You thought your smiles, your lies, your late nights could be explained away. But I watched you, Mark. I counted every betrayal. I knew about the other woman. I knew about the child. You think I didn't see the way you hid money, the way you locked your phone, the way you looked over your shoulder like a guilty man? I saw everything. The room seemed to shrink. The air was thick, sour with anticipation. Another child? One of my daughters gasped. Her eyes darted toward me, wide, wet. I shook my head too quickly. No, she's lying. Lying from the grave? Robert laughed, low and sharp. That's impressive. Dad? My son's voice broke, and it cut deeper than the letter itself. Just tell the truth, for once. The paper quivered in my hands. My vision blurred, not from shame, but rage. Rage that she'd left this trap. Rage that Robert had been waiting, patient, for this very moment. I couldn't save myself, Mark, but I could save them from you. If Robert is reading this to you, then you finally pushed too far. You hurt too many. You thought you built an empire, but it was always quicksand. And now you're sinking. Tears burned at the corner of my eyes. Not grief, not guilt, fury. I wanted to scream at her ghost. How dare she? How dare she leave this poison behind, ensuring I'd be gutted in front of everyone? The grave had given her the final word. And now Robert held the knife, twisting it slowly. The silence in the room was suffocating, broken only by the faint hum of the fridge in the kitchen, like a vulture's wings buzzing. She planned this, I spat, slamming the letter onto the table. She hated me enough to hand Robert the keys to destroy me. She didn't hate you, Emily snapped back. Her voice was sharp, but her eyes glistened. She pitied you. That's worse. Robert tilted his head, that infuriating half-smile never leaving. Funny how the dead tell the truth better than you ever could. Your sins will not die with me. They will outlive you. Every face that looks at you will know. Every word you speak will ring hollow. You will be remembered not for what you built, but for what you destroyed. And when the time comes, Mark, you'll face the truth you've always run from. You were never a husband, never a father, only a liar. The words bled into me like acid. My chest was tight. My breath stuttered. The house felt colder, the smell of dust and old wood pressing in. I could hear every shift of fabric as my children shifted away from me. Every creak of the floorboard as my wives straightened, no longer bound by my authority. The empire I thought I ruled had crumbled into ashes with one letter. And all of them, every single one, was staring at me like I was already dead. Enough! I roared, slamming my fist onto the table so hard the glasses rattled. She's gone! She's not here to answer for this, to defend herself. You don't understand. Understand? Robert cut in, calm, surgical. We understand perfectly. That's why she trusted me. Because she knew you'd do exactly this. Explode. Deflect. Rage. And now look at you. He gestured toward me with a lazy flick of his wrist. A man undone by a dead woman's pen. He was right. God help me. He was right. I could feel it in the way no one came to my defense. Not even the children I'd raised under my roof. Not even the wives who once swore they loved me. I was alone. A ghost, rattling chains no one cared to hear anymore. The silence pressed down heavier than the letter itself. And then Emily leaned forward. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It slid through the air like a blade between ribs. This isn't over, Mark.